Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 7:01, so the budget hearing and annual meeting of the School District of New Berlin is hereby called to order. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance. For those of you who wish to, Pledge of Allegiance. For those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we'll have a moment of silence. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public by posting the agenda at each district school, the district office, and the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. Additionally, and per state statute, notices were published in the Waukesha Freeman on September 16th and 23rd. Copies of the agenda were forwarded to the Waukesha Freeman, the Journal Sentinel, which have both filed a request for all public notices. I now turn the meeting over to Superintendent Garza and Patrick Miller, who will present the 2022-23 proposed budget.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Garza. I'm proud superintendent of the School District of New Berlin. I've been with the school district now for over 15 years, served in a couple different capacities. This is the first year that I can actually say not only am I a taxpayer, superintendent, but now a former parent of two graduates of the School District of New Berlin. But with that, I just wanted to give a brief introduction to you before I ask Patrick Miller, our CFO, to come up. We are certainly extremely proud of the things that are happening in the School District of New Berlin. The topics tonight are certainly budget-laden, and it is basically our duty to have the budget hearing in the annual meeting. But in that, I want to make sure that the things that are happening in our schools, our classrooms, are not getting lost. And so with that, here are just a few highlights that if you may or may not be aware, you would have all received, if you're a resident of the School District of New Berlin, a copy of our annual report, which highlights a lot of the incredible things that occurred throughout the school year last year. But we had successfully graduated 375 students last year. They earned a total of approximately $5 million in scholarships. We happen to be just one of 39 school districts in Wisconsin to receive the notoriety of significantly exceeding expectations on the state report card. Of course, many of our students and our parents and teachers, that is, recognized through individual awards and other manners. And then obviously we also had a state soccer championship here last year and other state championship recognitions with other clubs and academic performances. Moving into specifically financial status of the district, I do want to say that we are extremely proud that we have been able to stabilize and enhance our financial standing, and particularly by a decision that the board made last year, and that was to strategically use our fund balance to pay down debt. That debt being paid off allowed us to refine a robust and aggressive funding plan for our long-range facilities and capital improvement projects, which is something that we had not been able to do in recent years. Additionally, we are securing other revenue outside of that from the state, the feds, and from local property taxpayers, and that is by securing nearly $250,000 in financial commitments through the district's new naming rights and sponsorship program. And then finally, I do want to mention that our Education Foundation of New Berlin has been reinvigorated. Obviously, we had a bit of a slow start prior to the pandemic. We needed to hit pause. We've restarted it and certainly proud of the efforts of that group. Specifically tonight, you are going to hear us talk about the annual budget. Patrick is going to give you a high-level summary, give you information about ESSER funds, hearing and our plans, as well as our enrollment overview. Enrollment certainly drives our revenue in the school district per the state formula. Our projected financial future, and then we will allow for public comment and any questions at that time. So with that, I'll have Patrick please come up. And before he does, I do want to recognize that we do have members of his staff here, Crystal and Patrick as well. Patrick is not new anymore to the school district of New Berlin, although it seems like he just got here not too long ago. I'm sure he feels like he's been here quite some time. But despite that, I want to congratulate Patrick and his team. They've done an incredible job of helping balance our budgets and give recommendations to our finance committee, our facilities committee, and so on. And in fact, we've underspent our budget every year that Patrick's been here. And I think that's been done because of his fiscal prudence and responsibility, and that of not only that, but his staff in his department. So with that, Patrick, come on up and share the details, please.
Thanks a lot, Joe. I'll try really hard to live up to all of that. Like Joe said, this is my beginning my fourth year here in the school district of New Berlin. I am very proud to say that I am the Chief Financial and Operations Officer here in New Berlin. I'm very proud to have brought together, I think, a staff that is not just the class of Waukesha County, but the class of southeastern Wisconsin, and I would stack them up against any of the other 420 districts in the state. We have great people that are doing great things for the students and the parents and the taxpayers in the city of New Berlin. I'm going to highlight some of those things tonight, and as we go through this, I'm going to plow through, and then when we're done, Joe and I will make ourselves available for some questions. Starting out with a few of the notable things in the budget that we built. And if you're not going to see a lot of the budget detail in these slides, simply because we provided a detailed budget handout to you, very similar to the same one that we did in the preliminary budget. Some of the notable things for this upcoming fiscal year, ESSER funds have been a big deal in education over the last couple of years, and the school district of New Berlin, Freudian slip there, we were not unlike the other districts in the state receiving reimbursements. These reimbursements will allow us to have additional expenses to fill academic and operational needs, as well as replacing some of the fund balance that we use to pay off debt. We have a funded capital project plan. Right now, or tonight, we are recommending the levy of almost $2.4 million for the purpose of funding capital improvements through Fund 41. As Joe said, when I first came to the district a few years prior to that, the district was waiting until the end of the year to see what they had left in their budget to plan larger capital maintenance plans. Now we have the dollars set aside in Fund 41 that allows Andy and his staff to plan ahead for those improvements. We can maximize the savings with the bids that we're going out to, and it's much better to plan ahead than plan from behind. Fund balance. We are projecting an increase in fund balance with additional federal reimbursements. Last year we planned on using about $3.75 million in fund balance. We were paying off $4 million in debt. That actually was, we came in under budget for that. We still overspent our budget but only by $3 million. So again, fiscal prudence, fiscal responsibility, conservative business practices, we were still technically under budget this last year. We are getting a little bit more in state aid. These are, I will say, one-time dollars, however. We did receive about $400,000 in back-to-school aid. We still are not quite sure how that aid is going to come to us. It was just announced maybe a month or two ago, but we will be getting that. There was also a mental health initiative called Get Kids Ahead, and all of the districts in the state received a match of what they were initially allocated. Our district was allocated $68,000, so we will receive an additional $68,000. A couple of extra budget exemptions, declining enrollment, because we are still a declining enrollment district. 2 years ago, we had a significant decline in enrollment. That was the first year of the pandemic, where we lost about 140 FTE. And the way enrollment works in the state of Wisconsin, a 3-year rolling average allows a district to have a soft landing when they have a large enrollment decline, like we did. Right now, our enrollment seems to be stabilizing. And so right now, we had that soft landing a few years ago, but we still have to pay for that large enrollment decline 2 years ago, and then a smaller enrollment decline last year because of that average. We're also going to have an exemption of $1.5 million in energy exemption. That's due to legislation that allowed for the district to do these projects, and we can levy the principal and interest of that debt minus any calculated energy savings, which we get those energy savings calculated every year. It actually was in the budget publication in the newspaper, and it's in your handout. Some other revenue. There was no guaranteed allowance for increases in per pupil revenue limit or categorical aid last year or this next year. Any additional new dollars that we're getting are coming to the school district through federal dollars, that those reimbursement dollars that the state expected the districts to use in order to balance their budgets. We do have the additional dollars from back to school and Get Kids Ahead. We have a reduction of about 54 in our 3-year rolling average. Again, understand it doesn't mean our enrollment is going down. It just means that we had a couple of years where we had larger enrollment declines, and the first year of that reduction, you realize 1/3 of those students. The second year, you realize 2/3, and this year we're realizing all 141 students that we lost 2 years ago. So that was planned. We did get a slight increase, 1 FTE increase for summer school, which is always good news. We had an increase of 10 seats in open enrollment. That's as of the 21st of September. And we did have, I think it's 8 more students open enroll out this year than we had last year. So we have a net of an additional 2 students. 14.5% decrease in state aid. That was planned. If you've come to these budget presentations with me for the last few years, you've heard me say every year we're anticipating increase in state aid, which is highly unusual for a property-rich district like New Berlin. We're going to take it when we get it, but understand at some point in time, this trend is going to reverse itself. I said that for 2 years in a row now, and it's reversing itself. Not a problem. We planned for this, so we're not in any trouble financially because of that. 8.96% decrease in the property tax levy, due largely to the increase in property values across the city. Federal aid increased significantly through the ESSER 2 and 3 reimbursements. A 5.6 general fund revenue increase. Again, ESSER 2 and 3 reimbursements. Understand, those are dollars that we've already spent. So this isn't just money that the government is giving us in order to get this money. We have to spend money in a certain way. The revenues, we see 70 or 67% locally, 24.5% from state. Federal is up almost to 7%. And then other revenues that we get, smaller things like rebates for E-rate and for the use of P cards and whatnot. Some of the assumptions that we used for expenditures, 2.91% increase in staff wages, 0% increase in our health insurance costs, and that was by recommendation of our consultants. We've been doing very well with our self-funded health insurance. Purchase service reductions reflects a reduction in property services, items that we were able to move to Fund 41 instead of having them in the general fund, grabbing onto those aid benefits to Fund 41. Purchase services also reflects increases in transportation, 6%, and a fuel increase. Now understand, fuel increase, I planned for a large fuel increase last year and it never materialized. So we're actually able to have a very small increase in our fuel this year because we're spending the money on fuel this year that I had anticipated was going to happen last year. We have some planned technology infrastructure improvements. We initially had some carryover from language arts curriculum adoption. That's very small right now. We put most of those expenses in last year. I was a little bit concerned when we had our financial audit. Sometimes the audit firms will say, no, you need to move that into the next fiscal year. With how we procured that and how we got that out to the teachers, thanks especially to Brady and Kelly for working to get that material out. We were able to keep all those expenses in the last fiscal year. One of the big things is we don't have a transfer from the general fund to debt service to pay off that debt. So when you look at your budget booklet, it looks like we had a reduction of $4 million in Fund 38, and that's a pretty shocking number. Those were the dollars that we moved in order for us to pay off that debt. We only have to pay it off once, thankfully. Just a graphical representation of our expenses by percent. Salaries and benefits make up the largest portion of our expenditures, 43% and 17.5%. Purchase services, 21.6%. And understand there are two very large expenses that go into purchase services: our transportation and our substitute teachers, because we contract through an outside service. So purchase services is artificially high simply because of those two, if for nothing else. Transfers, those would be transfers to special education. About 30% of the special education costs are borne by state and federal aid. 60 or 70% of the cost is a transfer from the general fund to the special education fund. And it's one of those things. It's easy. People always think that's special education costs. That's paid for by the federal government and the state, and only about 30%. Non-capital objects, those would be things under $5,000. Insurance and judgments, those would be like property casualty insurance, and if there are any settlements that we have to pay out of that. Capital objects, those items over $5,000, and then everything else that kind of fits in there. Let's spend just a little bit of time touching on ESSER funds. Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Act, that's what ESSER is. They were part of the American Rescue Plan, signed in by President Trump in March of 2021. They provide reimbursements to the school districts for expenses used to reopen and sustain the safe operation of schools and address the impact of the pandemic. So certain expenses that we've had since March of 2020 are eligible for reimbursements that allow us to bring in ESSER dollars. The reimbursements go, like I just said, all the way back to 2020. We are using the things that qualify for reimbursement, materials that were purchased to address student learning, maintaining social, emotional, mental, physical health, and safety of students and staff during the pandemic, technology upgrades used to be able to provide instruction through the pandemic, and facility expenses related to pandemic responses. Not just the PPE that we did very early, but any of the other changes that we made. For example, if you walk through our buildings right now, you're going to notice there's a ton more bottle fillers than there used to be. That's just an example of a maintenance item that we could use to obtain a reimbursement. All total, the district will receive about $4.8 million. ESSER 1, which was called the CARES Act, that was all spent on PPE very early in the pandemic. We only received about $65,000 of that. ESSER 2, that's reimbursement for all of the academic technology facility responses from March of 2020 through the end of, through the end of this last school year. So any expense that fit into that reimbursement for ESSER 2, we have claimed, and we have just received those dollars for the 2023 fiscal year. ESSER 3, about 20% of those dollars are to implement strategies that support, it's called evidence-based improvement or improvement strategies. 80% is to address learning loss. If you have any feedback or comments on the ESSER funds, and again, we're spending our ESSER, or we're getting our ESSER reimbursements in very much the same way that the other schools are. And we're spending those ESSER dollars on items or material that's very similar to what the other schools are spending that on. We're all playing on the same playing field. What we have to use to claim our ESSER dollars is the same thing that other districts are using to claim those dollars. But if you would like to provide some feedback or have questions, that's the link to use. Just some notes on enrollment. Currently, the trend that we've been going through is larger graduating classes replaced by much smaller kindergarten classes. That's why we've over time had an enrollment decline. This year, however, every grade except for one, I'm not talking about kindergarten, so 1st through 12th grade, I believe it was only the 6th grade class didn't have an increase in enrollment in that cohort from the previous year. So for example, 6th graders in 2021, 296, 307 3rd graders this year, 324 8th graders, now 351 9th graders. So we're seeing increases in our enrollment within the kindergarten, the senior loss to kindergarten gain. So that's really good news and stabilizing enrollment news for a school district. This current trend indicates an enrollment stabilization. And I will tell you that enrollment in the state of Wisconsin public schools is very, very cyclical. They're cyclical. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. A few years ago, you wanted to be the Sun Prairie Public Schools because they were gaining kids by the truckload. I mean, they were building school. By the time they would get a school built, it was beyond capacity. Right now, Sun Prairie is declining enrollment. So for our school district to stabilize and start to go up, we anticipate that. In the future, I would also anticipate times where that enrollment is going to cycle down. It's just the way works. The reason everybody comes to this meeting tonight is to talk about the tax levy. We love to talk about taxes. Our property tax levy, and this was adjusted for the state budget. Last year, the property tax levy was $43 million. This year, the proposed levy is $44 million. That's an increase of about $1 million, a 2.2% increase. It's directly proportional to the tax levy increase is directly proportional to the loss in state aid. The property tax rates, however, and this is something that the district should be very proud of, we've had something like 12 straight years of a decline in our property tax mill rate. So our mill rate is going down from $657 a thousand to $689 a thousand. That's a $170 decrease in gross school tax levy on a $250,000 home. That's good news. Now, again, if your property taxes go up, you may not realize that. And I also I tell everybody every time I have this meeting, I do not set your property taxes. I tax the city, and the city applies the property taxes to you. So I can only estimate what your property tax is going to be for the school. The city is actually the municipality that determines that actual amount. I'm sorry for the small print, but this is actually included in your packet as well. This shows a 10-year tax levy history where you can see the equalized value, the change in equalized value, the levy, the change in the levy, and then the actual levy rate and its change. And you can see since 2014, 2015, our levy rate has gone down every year. This is a breakdown of the levy that I'm going to be eventually asking for your approval tonight. $37.6 million for general operations. That's the general fund. $3.8 million for non-referendum debt. That's our debt within Fund 38. $2.37 million for capital expenditures in Fund 41. Those are the dollars that we're putting into Fund 41 that the district can then use to do capital improvements throughout the district. And then $600,000 for community service for a total of $44,365,765 to be levied upon all the real property, real and personal, within the bounds of the school district of New Berlin. Our financial future. I am absolutely thrilled to tell you that we are one of the school districts in the state of Wisconsin that has a very stable financial base right now. Even though in this past school year we overspent our allocated budget by $3 million to pay off debt, this next year we plan on being able to return $2 million of that $3 million. And then next year, the following year, we are projecting a balanced budget. What I have done is I still have about $1.5 million in ESSER 3 reimbursements that I could make this year, but I am going to hold on to those reimbursements until I have an idea of what the next biennial budget is going to look like. We've positioned the district very well to be able to continue with a stable financial future. Many districts out there are quite honestly going to be in trouble if we don't get what we need from the state biennial budget. They're going to be faced with staffing cuts or other cuts in the future in order to balance their budgets. We planned our finances so that we will continue to be able to live to fight another day. I'm very, very proud of that fact. I'm happy to have the support of the Board of Education to make those decisions. I'm happy to have the support of Joel and Kelly and the rest of the administrative team to be able to make those decisions and continue to be able to provide for our students and our staff and our parents. I pride myself on not being the guy who has to say no. I'm still going to ask you to make sure you really need it, but nobody has come to me with a need that had to be filled in the last 3 years, and I've said, sorry, we can't do it. So, kids first.
Patrick, there are a few things, if you wouldn't mind flipping that. Actually, I'll take the, yep, and then if you will come up, for those of you that want to add a comment or question, we're going to flip the microphone so you can do that. A couple points of clarification that I want to mention are a couple things here. The general operations levy is the maximum levy that we're allowable by the state. I know that in years past, more than a decade ago, the district or the board at that time did not levy to the maximum allowable, but in this case we are. And I also want to mention that the ESSA reimbursements are strictly that. As of now, those dollars, there are no strings attached to the dollars that we are asking to get reimbursed on. Should there ever be a time where there's a question, we certainly would be bringing that to the board. But as of now, the way that it's been explained to us, there are no strings attached for any sort of federal curricular requirement or expectations that could be swirling out there. We do believe in local control, and we're certainly proud of that fact. And so as of now, no additional strings are attached to those dollars. So with that, I guess we would open it up to comments and questions at this time.
Wouldn't be an annual meeting if I didn't talk about something, would it, Joe? My name is Scott Yunch, and I'm a resident of the school district. And I had a question regarding the long-range plan. And, anybody that's a frequent attendee here at these meetings knows that I'm a big proponent of funding our capital projects and funding our long-range plan decently. So I'm very happy that we're starting to do that. Do you have the slide, or do you have a figure as to that amount that was put in towards the long-range plan in the recent past?
I do have a slide up here that indicates what we did this last year.
Right.
And I can... Last year we funded Fund 41 at $1.85 million.
Okay. And is there a way for the public to see what projects were done with that 1 point?
Yes, I am planning on, in the future, near future, delivering a presentation to the facilities committee that will eventually then go to the board that will highlight the projects that have been completed through that fund.
That would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And those projects had already been directed to us by the facilities committee and the school board to move forward on
Right. And
in public.
what I'm looking for is just somewhere for the public to be able to see where those investments are happening so that they can see that, hey, we are investing in the long-range plan, the capital facilities, things like that. And I know right now, if they look, the long-range plan information on the website is 3 years old now. So it'd be nice for us to get a commitment of something in the near term where that can be updated, where we can start seeing what's being done so that we can, one, congratulate you and also hold to account how our funds are being spent. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move forward to the next part of our meeting. Thank you very much. Dan, we're good with this then?
The annual meeting of the School District of New Berlin is hereby called to order. All district residents wishing to vote during tonight's meeting must have registered in the Commons lobby and received a voting card along with an annual meeting packet. Suggested nominations are included in the packet. When making a nomination, please state your name and address. When voting, please raise your voting card high and keep it raised until the vote can be determined. The first item on the agenda is the election of a chairperson. I will now accept nominations for a chairperson to conduct this annual meeting of the electors of the School District of New Berlin. Do I have a nomination?
I, Jeffrey Kurth of 4085 South Adele Avenue, New Berlin, Wisconsin, move to nominate Mitch Helmer to serve as chairperson.
Do I have any other nominations for chairperson? Do I have any other nominations for chairperson? Do I have any other nominations for chairperson? With there being no other nominations from the floor, Mitch Helmer was elected permanent chairperson. The next item on the agenda is approval of the rules of order and agenda. The printed agenda is recommended by the New Berlin School Board and complies with duties and responsibilities of the annual meeting for which action is deemed necessary. Do I have a motion?
I, Jeffrey Kurth of 4085 South Adele Avenue, move to approve the rules of order and agenda as printed.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion by Jeff, seconded by Ron to approve the rules of order and agenda as printed. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. Do I have to do that? All opposed to the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. Motion carries. The next item for the agenda is the appointment of parliamentarian by chairperson. I appoint Andrew Phillips, the district's legal counsel, as parliamentarian. The next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report. Since the electors have a printed copy of this report, do I have a motion to dispense with the reading of the Treasury report and recommend its approval as presented?
I, Ron Seidel of 17631 West Westward Drive, move to dispense with the reading of the Treasury report and recommend its approval as presented.
Motion by Ron and seconded by Jeff to dispense with the reading of the Treasurer's report and approve the report as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. All opposed to the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. Motion carries. The next item is a resolution to adopt the tax levy for the 2022-2023 school year. Do I have a motion?
I, Ron Seidel of 17631 West Westward Drive, move to levy a tax in the amount of $44,365,765, including $2,371,626 for capital expansion projects on all property, real and personal, within the bounds of the School District of New Berlin, in the City of New Berlin, Wisconsin, for the purpose of operating the public schools, including the maintenance of buildings and sites and discharge of debt.
Motion by Ron, second by Jeff, to levy a tax in the amount of $44,365,765, including $2,371,626 for capital expansion projects on all property, real and personal, within the bounds of the School District of New Berlin, City of New Berlin, Wisconsin, for the purpose of operating the public schools, including the maintenance of buildings and sites and discharge of debt. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. All opposed to the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. Motion carries. The next item is setting a date for the 2023 annual meeting. Do I have a motion?
I, Chrislyn Holiday Wondercheck of 13725 West Foxwood Drive, New Berlin, move to set the authorize the school board and the school district of New Berlin to establish the date for the 2023 annual meeting between the dates of May 15 and October 31st, 2023.
Motion by Chrislin, second by Jeff, to authorize the school board of the school district of New Berlin to establish the date for the 2023 annual meeting between the dates of May 15th and October 31st, 2023. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your voting cards and leave it raised. All opposed to the motion, please raise your voting cards and leave it raised. Motion carries. The next item is setting school board members' annual salaries. Do I have a motion?
I, Amy Crosby of 3959 South Victoria Court, move to set the annual salaries of school board members at $3,500, school board vice president at $4,500, and school board president at $5,000.
Motion by Amy, seconded by Jeff, to set the annual salaries of school board members at $3,500, school board president at $5,000, and school board vice president at $4,500. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. All opposed to the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. Motion carries. The final item is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I, Renee Connick of 14165 West Beechwood Trail, move to adjourn.
Motion by Renee, second by Jeff to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. All opposed to this motion, please raise your voting card and leave it raised. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 7:49 and a quorum of members is present. So the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby,
Here.
Mr. Helmer,
Here.
Ms. Konick. Here. Mr. Kurth. Here. Ms. Schulz. Here. Mr. Seidel,
Here.
Ms. Wondercheck.
Here.
In recognition of the seriousness and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all who are able, please rise. And now for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we'll have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the City Library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal-Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, the Waukesha Now, all of which who have filed requests for all public notices. Privilege of the floor. Meetings of the board are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the schools, and therefore are not public meetings, but meetings held in public. This portion of the meeting is an opportunity for you to come and voice your concerns to the board. So please do not be offended when we quietly listen. We may even take notes. We do not immediately respond to your questions and comments. This is a time for you to talk to us and for us to listen. Thank you for coming to voice your comments and concerns. When I call your name, please step up to the microphone, address the chair, and state your name and whether or not you are a resident in this school district. Each presentation will be restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Privilege of the floor will be limited to 1/2 hour. Presentations are not to be designed for the purpose of engaging others in a debate in this forum. Discussion of certified, classified, and professional personnel or of individual board members of education shall not be considered an appropriate topic for this forum, and the speaker will be ruled out of order. We have one public comment. Diana Hansen.
Mr. Helmer, members of the board, members of the community I've come to know over the years, administrators, support staff, Dr. Sanders, Mr. Miller, and Superintendent Garza. What are you doing? My name is Diana Hansen. I am not a resident of this district, but I'm proud to say I've been an employee for 3 weeks shy of 24 years. It has been an honor to serve this board and the previous versions of the board in the past. And for the, Joe, it has been an absolute privilege to work with you and for you. And I'm proud to say that, and your administrative team, you've built a great team, and I'm gonna miss you all. And I'm proud to say that I've made a lot of friends here in the district. I'll be in touch. I'm only a phone call away. But again, it's just been an honor and a privilege to serve this district, so thank you very much.
I am not going to follow up that speech with the president's message. Joe, superintendent update.
I will not either. Thank you.
Ron, do you have the financial or the donation report?
I do.
Read that, please.
There's 4 donations. The first one is for the New Berlin Boys Basketball Booster Club for the purchase of wall wrap in the boys' locker room. in the amount of $3,300. The approval date was 7/28/2022. The next one was for also New Berlin West, Wisconsin Waterfowl Association West Dallas chapter to support the Trap Club in the amount of $2,000. The approval date was 7/28/2022. The next one was for Poplar Creek, from the Poplar Creek PTO, to purchase a cupboard for the lost and found in the amount of $355.61. The approval date was 5/5/2022. The final one is for Ronald Reagan. It was from Michael Coplin to support the orchestra program with a donation of a cello, an in-kind donation of $400. That was approval date was 9/13/2022. Total donations were $6,055.61. Thank you so much to all of our donors. We really appreciate it, and we couldn't function without you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Well, second.
I have a motion by Jeff and a second by Ron to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, please leave. Oh, we will do a roll call vote. I apologize. Diana, Ann, can you please call a roll?
And I'm thinking who made the first motion? Mr. Kurth? Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Konik?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz? Ms. Wonderchek?
Yes.
On to our regular agenda. Do I have a motion for the discussion and approval of policy 751, use of district facilities?
I make a motion to approve policy 7510, use of district facilities as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Jeff and a second by Ron to approve. Oops, sorry. Yeah. For discussion. Can you please call a roll? All right. For discussion, yeah, yes. Janet, we miss you. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, can you please call roll?
Mr. Kurth? Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Konik?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz? Ms. Wonderchek?
Yes.
Future meetings and dates. Board meetings are generally held on the second and fourth Monday, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Eisenhower Boardroom. So the next one will be Wednesday, October 12th at 7 p.m. Note the Wednesday date, it says. Also, October 24th at 7 p.m. and November 14th at 7 p.m. And there will be a personnel committee meeting on Monday the 14th with a time to be determined. Do I have a motion to recess into closed session?
Mr. President, I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, 1C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider. Oh, it's a different order today. Where were you? Hold on, I have it. Yes. I know, I'm looking for the items. Yeah, I'm looking for B, employment performance compensation matters pertaining to staff, and approval of closed session minutes of September 12th.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a motion by Jeff and a second by Ron. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby? Oh, excuse me. Mr. Kurth?
Yes.
Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Connick?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz? Yes. Ms. Wondercheck?
Yes.
We're approximately about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. We are moving into closed session and we'll return to open session as close to 8:10 as possible. It is now 8:05 and we beat our target time of 8:10. We are returning from closed session into open session. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby,
Here.
Mr. Helmer,
Yes.
Ms. Konick,
Yes.
Mr. Kurth, Ms. Schulz, Mr. Seidel,
Yes.
Ms. Wondricek.
Yes.
Are there any action from closed session?
I move to improve the employment performance and compensation matters pertaining staff as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Jeff and a second by Ron. All those in favor, please call the roll.
Ms. Mr. Kurth? Yes. Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Konick?
Yes.
Ms. Schulz? Yes. Ms. Wondricek?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion by Jeff and a second by Ron to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kurth? Yes. Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Konick?
Yes.
Ms. Schulz?
Yes.
Ms. Wondricek?
Yes.